Have you ever walked into a room and immediately felt drawn to someone, even before they spoke a word? Or perhaps you've wondered why some individuals effortlessly command attention and respect, while others struggle to be heard. It's not magic, luck, or an innate gift bestowed upon a select few. It's an understanding of the subtle, yet incredibly powerful, undercurrents of human psychology and behavior. For centuries, philosophers, leaders, and even everyday individuals have sought to unravel the mysteries of influence, the ability to connect, persuade, and inspire others. We all possess an inherent desire to be understood, to belong, and to have our voices matter. Yet, for many, the path to achieving this feels shrouded in complexity, leading to missed opportunities, awkward interactions, and a lingering sense of being overlooked. Consider the pervasive feeling of inadequacy that can arise when you struggle to articulate your ideas effectively in a meeting, or the frustration of not being able to connect with someone you genuinely admire. Think about the countless times you've observed someone effortlessly navigate a social gathering, leaving a trail of charmed individuals in their wake, and wished you knew their secret. These aren't just minor social inconveniences. They touch upon our fundamental human need for connection and impact. We live in a world where relationships are paramount, whether in our personal lives, our professional careers, or our broader communities. The ability to influence, in its purest and most ethical form, isn't about manipulation. It's about building bridges, fostering understanding, and inspiring positive change. It's about becoming a social magnet, an individual who naturally draws others in, not through force or trickery, but through genuine connection and an astute understanding of what makes people tick. This video isn't about giving you a set of superficial tricks to win friends and influence people in a shallow sense. Instead, we're going to embark on a deep dive into the hidden architecture of human interaction. We'll peel back the layers of everyday behavior to reveal 20 profound secrets of influence that, once understood, will fundamentally shift your mindset and perception of yourself and the world around you. Each secret we uncover is a powerful psychological insight, a piece of the puzzle that explains why we act, react, and connect the way we do. We'll explore the underlying mechanisms, drawing on scientific research and real-world examples to show you not just what works, but why it works. These aren't just theories. They're actionable principles that you can immediately begin to apply in your own life, transforming your relationships, enhancing your communication, and empowering you to navigate social landscapes with newfound confidence and effectiveness. Prepare to unlock insights that will enable you to communicate more persuasively, build stronger rapport, and foster genuine connections that truly last. You'll learn how to inspire trust, encourage cooperation, and even understand when others might be attempting to influence you, allowing you to protect yourself from manipulation. This journey will challenge your preconceived notions about human behavior and equip you with a toolkit for authentic influence. By the end, you won't just understand how to be a social magnet, you'll be one, radiating an energy that naturally attracts positive interactions and meaningful relationships. Get ready to transform your understanding of influence and, in doing so, transform your life. Section 2.1. The Reciprocity Advantage. Have you ever found yourself in a situation where someone offered you an unexpected favor, a small gift, or even just a genuinely helpful piece of advice, and you instantly felt a subtle, almost imperceptible urge to return the gesture? Perhaps a colleague brought you a coffee without being asked, or a stranger held a door open for you and smiled, In those moments, you likely experienced the profound psychological force of reciprocity, one of the most powerful and pervasive principles of human influence. This isn't merely about politeness or good manners. It's a deeply ingrained, almost automatic human tendency to repay, in kind, what another person has provided us. It's the invisible social contract that governs countless interactions, from the most trivial exchanges to monumental decisions, shaping our relationships and influencing our choices in ways we rarely consciously acknowledge. The mechanism behind reciprocity is rooted deeply in our evolutionary history and the fundamental human need for social cohesion and cooperation. Imagine our early ancestors' survival depended on mutual aid. If one person shared food, another was more likely to share resources later. This created a system of reciprocal altruism that greatly enhanced group survival. Our brains evolved to recognize and respond to this dynamic. When someone gives us something, it triggers a neurological response that creates a sense of indebtedness. This isn't necessarily a negative feeling, rather, it's a cognitive and emotional state that compels us to restore balance to the social exchange. We feel an intrinsic pressure to avoid being perceived as ungrateful, selfish, or exploitative, as such perceptions could damage our social standing and future cooperative opportunities. It's like an internal set of scales that, once tipped by an initial act of giving, yearns to be leveled by a counteract. This drive to reciprocate is often more powerful than rational calculation, operating below the surface of conscious thought. Think about the ubiquitous examples you encounter every day. In retail, free samples at grocery stores aren't just about taste testing. They are powerful initiators of reciprocity. A small piece of cheese or a sip of a new beverage creates a subtle obligation in the consumer, making them more likely to purchase the product, or at least feel more positively towards the brand. Charities often include small, unsolicited gifts, like personalized address labels or greeting cards, with their fundraising appeals. While seemingly minor, these gifts significantly increase donation rates because recipients feel a greater sense of obligation to contribute. In the service industry, a restaurant offering a complimentary mint or a small cookie with the bill frequently sees a boost in tip percentages, directly attributable to the reciprocity principle. Similarly, car dealerships that offer a free car wash or a no-obligation test drive understand that these seemingly small gestures make customers more receptive to their sales pitches. The why is clear: people dislike the psychological discomfort of feeling indebted. The how is equally transparent by initiating the act of giving. You subtly, yet powerfully, set the stage for receiving. The impact of truly understanding reciprocity is profound and transformative, empowering you to navigate social interactions with greater insight and effectiveness. On the positive side, it is an incredibly powerful tool for building stronger, more authentic relationships and fostering genuine goodwill. By consistently being the first to offer value, support, or kindness, you create a robust foundation of trust and connection. People will naturally be more inclined to help you, listen to your ideas, collaborate on projects, and generally be more receptive to your influence. It cultivates a positive feedback loop. The more genuinely you give, the more naturally others are inclined to give back. This isn't about transactional manipulation. It's about embodying generosity and seeing it reflected back. However, it's crucial to acknowledge the potential for misuse. Unscrupulous individuals and organizations often exploit this principle. They might offer a seemingly small, unsolicited favor or concession with the deliberate intention of creating a sense of obligation for a much larger, often disproportionate, return. This manipulative tactic is frequently cloaked in an appeal to fairness or the idea that you owe me. Recognizing this allows you to develop a critical lens, defending yourself from attempts to exploit your natural inclination to repay, to ethically and effectively apply the principle of reciprocity in your daily life. Cultivate a mindset of proactive generosity. Consciously look for opportunities to be the first to give, without an immediate expectation of return. This doesn't require grand gestures. It's often the small, thoughtful acts that resonate most deeply. Offer a sincere and specific compliment. Share a useful insight or piece of information. Connect two people who could genuinely benefit from knowing each other, or simply lend a truly empathetic and non-judgmental ear when someone needs to talk. In professional settings, go the extra mile to assist a colleague. Share your expertise freely, or offer solutions before being asked. In conversations, practice active listening and strive to offer helpful perspectives or resources before you make a request. The key is authenticity. Your giving should stem from a genuine desire to help or connect, not from a calculated attempt to extract something in return. When you encounter situations where an unsolicited gift or favor feels disproportionate, or if there's an unspoken pressure to reciprocate in a way that feels uncomfortable, pause and critically consider the potential underlying motive. Ask yourself, does this feel like genuine generosity, or is it designed to create an obligation? By embodying a spirit of genuine giving, you become a powerful source of positive energy, creating a virtuous cycle of mutual benefit, and making you a naturally magnetic and influential presence in any social circle. Your ultimate takeaway is this: initiate genuine giving, not as a transaction, but as an investment in trust and connection, and watch as your influence flourishes organically. Have you ever found yourself in a shopping aisle, perfectly content without a particular item, only to see a sign declaring limited stock or only 3 left, and suddenly feel an undeniable urge to acquire it? Or perhaps you've considered attending an event more seriously after hearing that tickets were selling fast, or that registration was closing soon. This isn't just a coincidence or a trick of the mind. It's the potent psychological principle of scarcity at play, one of the most powerful triggers of human desire and action. Our brains are incredibly adept at perceiving things that are rare, exclusive, or dwindling in availability as inherently more valuable and, crucially, more urgent to acquire. It taps into a fundamental human fear of missing out, amplified by the perception of a limited, vanishing opportunity. The mechanism behind the scarcity principle is multifaceted, drawing on several core psychological drivers that influence our decision-making. Firstly, and perhaps most profoundly, scarcity directly impacts our innate desire for freedom and choice. When something becomes limited in availability, our perceived freedom to obtain it is threatened. This directly triggers a strong psychological phenomenon known as psychological reactance. When we feel our choices are being restricted or taken away, we often react by wanting the restricted item or option even more intensely. It's a primal pushback against perceived control. Secondly, scarcity often serves as a powerful heuristic or mental shortcut for quality and desirability. Our minds often assume that if something is rare or hard to get, it must be because it's highly sought after by many, implying its inherent worth or superior quality. If everyone wants it, it must be good. Right, this often leads us to conflate rarity with value. Thirdly, and perhaps most compellingly, the principle of scarcity leverages our aversion to loss Numerous studies in behavioral economics have demonstrated that the pain of losing something we already possess, or the opportunity to acquire something that might soon be gone, is a far more powerful motivator than the pleasure of gaining something new. Our brains are hardwired to prioritize avoiding potential losses, making a scarce item incredibly compelling because the cost of not acquiring it feels much higher. You can observe the pervasive influence of scarcity in nearly every facet of modern life and human interaction. In commerce, airlines constantly display messages like, "Only a few seats left at this price," to create a sense of urgency and spur immediate bookings. Retailers announce flash sales or one-day-only deals to drive impulse purchases. Limited edition products, from rare stamps and vintage wines to collectible sneakers and designer handbags, command exorbitant prices precisely because their limited availability confers an aura of exclusivity and heightened desirability. Even in digital spaces, platforms use countdown timers for offers or show how many people are currently viewing a particular item to induce a sense of competition and urgency. Beyond commerce, the principle subtly influences social dynamics. A person who is perceived as busy, in high demand, or whose time and attention are not constantly available can paradoxically become more attractive and respected. This isn't about playing manipulative games. It's about valuing your own time, skills, and contributions, which in turn signals to others that your involvement is a valuable and, to some extent, limited resource. If you are always available at the drop of a hat, your time may be taken for granted. If your time is genuinely valuable and occasionally scarce, others will respect it more. The impact of truly understanding scarcity is twofold, offering both powerful opportunities for ethical influence and crucial insights for self-protection. Ethically, it highlights the importance of creating genuine value that naturally generates demand. Rather than relying on artificial scarcity, it encourages you to appreciate the intrinsic worth of your own unique skills, expertise, and offerings, allowing you to position them effectively without resorting to manipulation. For personal development, recognizing that something is genuinely scarce can help you prioritize opportunities that are truly limited and valuable, preventing procrastination and fostering decisive action. For example, a limited-time educational course that genuinely offers unique insights should be prioritized over perpetually available resources. However, the dark side of scarcity is frequently evident in manipulative tactics. Think of the bait and switch, where an item is advertised as scarce but then mysteriously runs out, only for a more expensive alternative to be pushed. Or the endless last chance warnings for products that always seem to reappear. Recognizing these ploys empowers you to critically evaluate whether the urgency is real or merely a manufactured illusion designed to rush your decision. To effectively and ethically apply the principle of scarcity, focus on highlighting genuine limitations or unique aspects of what you offer. If you genuinely have limited availability for a consulting project, or if a product you're selling is truly a limited run, clearly and transparently state that. If you possess a unique skill set that few others have, subtly highlight its rarity and the distinct value it provides. When inviting someone to an event, if there are genuinely limited spots, communicating that fact can encourage timely responses. In personal interactions, while being present and engaged when you are with others, it's also healthy to have a rich and varied life that doesn't make you perpetually available. This signals that your time is valuable and that your presence is meaningful. When you encounter a situation where scarcity tactics are being employed to pressure you, pause and engage your critical thinking. Ask yourself, would I want this item or opportunity if it were readily and perpetually available? And is the urgency truly real? Or is it being manufactured to rush my decision? By understanding both the allure of less and its potential for manipulation, you can strategically position your own unique value and confidently guard against external pressures, making you a more discerning, resilient, and influential individual in all your interactions. Your ultimate takeaway is, this true value is often amplified by genuine rarity. So understand and communicate your unique contributions and time as valuable resources. Have you ever found yourself nodding in agreement with someone, or immediately trusting their advice, simply because they were introduced with an impressive title, wore a crisp uniform, or spoke with an air of absolute certainty? Perhaps you followed a doctor's recommendation without questioning, even if it seemed counterintuitive, or accepted a lawyer's counsel without fully understanding the nuances. This isn't a sign of naivety or weakness. It's the profound psychological principle of authority, powerfully at work. We are deeply, almost instinctively, conditioned to respect, obey, and defer to those we perceive as being in positions of authority or possessing superior knowledge and expertise. This deference isn't always a conscious, critical decision. It's often an ingrained societal norm that leads us to comply with requests or readily accept information from perceived experts, often without rigorous independent evaluation. The mechanism behind the authority principle is deeply embedded in our cognitive shortcuts and societal structures. Tracing back to our earliest developmental stages. From childhood, we are taught the importance of respecting and obeying parents, teachers, religious figures, and law enforcement. This early conditioning instills a fundamental belief that those in authority roles possess superior knowledge, wisdom, experience, or power, making them trustworthy guides whose directives should generally be followed. As we grow, this conditioning translates into a broader societal expectation. Our brains constantly seek to conserve energy and simplify complex decision-making processes. Accepting the word of an authority figure is an incredibly efficient way to navigate an overwhelmingly complex world. Especially when we lack specific knowledge ourselves, we make a crucial assumption: their position or apparent expertise implies that they have already done the necessary research, possess the relevant information, and therefore can be trusted to provide accurate guidance. It's like outsourcing our critical thinking to someone we believe has already mastered the subject, relieving us of the burden of extensive personal inquiry or independent judgment. You can observe the pervasive power of authority in countless real-world scenarios, both overt and subtle. Consider the immediate trust bestowed upon a doctor in a white coat regarding medical advice. Often, patients will follow prescriptions or lifestyle changes simply because the doctor said so, even if they don't fully understand the underlying reasoning. Similarly, a financial advisor with impressive credentials, a polished office, and a confident demeanor easily garners confidence and trust from clients, even those with limited understanding of investment strategies. Beyond formal titles, even subtle cues can trigger the authority response. An expensive, well-tailored suit might subtly signal financial success and competence. Confident. Articulate language combined with unwavering eye contact can project an air of expertise. And even the way someone carries themselves, with poise and assurance, can evoke respect and deference. In social settings, someone who speaks with conviction, supports their points with data, and demonstrates deep, nuanced knowledge on a particular subject tends to naturally draw listeners, command attention, and influence opinions more effectively than someone who speaks tentatively or without clear evidence. They don't necessarily need to be famous or have a formal title. Simply being perceived as having superior information or extensive experience in a given context is often enough to activate this powerful principle. The impact of truly understanding the authority principle is significant, offering profound advantages for ethical influence and crucial insights for self-protection. Positively, it underscores the immense importance of genuinely developing expertise in your chosen field or areas of interest, and then clearly and effectively communicating that expertise. When you speak from a place of true knowledge, hard-earned experience, and demonstrable competence, your words naturally carry more weight, and people are far more inclined to trust your judgment, accept your recommendations, and follow your lead. This encourages a commitment to continuous learning, honing your skills, and building a foundation of authentic mastery, which is the most powerful and ethical basis for influence. However, it is absolutely critical to acknowledge the dark side authority can be easily faked, abused, or exploited. Unscrupulous individuals or organizations frequently use deceptive titles, borrowed credibility, impressive but irrelevant statistics, or even simply the appearance of authority, like actors dressed as experts in commercials, to manipulate others into compliance. Think of the infamous Milgram experiment, where ordinary people administered what they believed were painful electric shocks to others simply because an authority figure in a lab coat told them to. Recognizing these manipulative tactics, like someone dropping names of famous people they supposedly know, or exaggerating their past achievements without concrete proof, allows you to develop a crucial skepticism and critically evaluate whether the source of authority is legitimate and relevant. To ethically and effectively apply the principle of authority in your own life, focus on building and demonstrating your genuine expertise. This means committing to continuous learning, deep understanding of your subject matter, and honing your skills. When communicating, cite credible sources, share relevant experiences, and speak with confidence that is born from true knowledge, not arrogance. You don't need to overtly brag about your achievements, but subtly weaving in your relevant qualifications, years of experience, or past successes in a natural, context-appropriate way can significantly enhance your perceived authority. For example, instead of just stating an opinion, you might say, "In my 10 years working with X, I've observed that," or "research from reputable institutions suggests." Furthermore, remember to always present your insights with clarity and a willingness to explain, rather than demanding blind obedience. When you encounter an appeal to authority, particularly one that feels pressuring or lacking in substance, engage your critical thinking. Always ask yourself, is this person genuinely an expert in this specific area? And what objective evidence or verifiable credentials support their claim beyond just their title or confident demeanor? By cultivating true expertise and maintaining a discerning eye towards perceived authority, you become both a more influential and respected leader and a more resilient, informed individual who can navigate complex information landscapes with confidence. Your core takeaway is this: genuine authority is meticulously built on knowledge, integrity, and demonstrable competence, and it commands natural ethical respect and influence. Have you ever found yourself agreeing to a small request, only to realize later that it subtly led you to agree to a much larger one you might have otherwise resisted? Or perhaps you've made a public statement about your intentions, and then felt an almost irresistible internal pressure to follow through, even when circumstances changed. This isn't random. It's the powerful and pervasive psychological principle of commitment and consistency at work. Our innate desire to be and appear consistent with our past decisions, statements, and actions is a profound driver of human behavior. Once we make a commitment, even a small one, we experience a strong internal and external pressure to behave in ways that are consistent with that initial stance, often leading us down a path we might not have consciously chosen in the first place. The mechanism behind commitment and consistency is rooted in several fundamental aspects of human psychology. Firstly, cognitive dissonance reduction. Human beings inherently dislike inconsistency. When our beliefs, attitudes, or actions clash, creating cognitive dissonance, we experience psychological discomfort. To alleviate this discomfort, we are highly motivated to align our subsequent behaviors with our prior commitments. Once we've taken a stand, our minds work to rationalize that stand, making it easier to continue down that path. Secondly, consistency is highly valued in society. Being seen as consistent, reliable, and true to one's word is a desirable social trait. Inconsistent individuals are often perceived as indecisive, hypocritical, or untrustworthy. Therefore, there's a strong social pressure to maintain a consistent public image. This desire for both internal and external consistency serves as a powerful mental shortcut. Rather than reevaluating every situation, we can simply default to behaving in a way that aligns with our previous choices, saving cognitive effort. You can observe the profound influence of commitment and consistency in countless real-world scenarios, from everyday interactions to large-scale persuasive campaigns. Consider the foot-in-the-door technique often used by salespeople. They start with a very small, easy-to-agree-upon request, e.e., asking for a signature on a petition or a brief survey. Once you agree to this small request, you've made an initial commitment. Later, they follow up with a much larger request, G, asking you to donate money or purchase a product. Because you've already committed to the initial E, minor action, you're significantly more likely to agree to the subsequent, larger one to maintain consistency with your self-perception as a helpful or engaged individual. Think about subscription services that offer a free trial, requiring your credit card details. The act of signing up, even for free, creates a subtle commitment, making it harder to cancel when the paid subscription begins. In political campaigns, getting people to publicly declare their support for a candidate, e.g., putting a sign in their yard makes them far more likely to vote for that candidate and even volunteer, as they've publicly committed to that stance. Even in personal relationships, small promises or agreements can build a powerful trajectory. If you agree to help a friend with a minor task, you'll feel a stronger pull to help them with a bigger project later. To be consistent with your image as a supportive friend, the impact of understanding the commitment and consistency principle is truly transformative for both ethical influence and personal empowerment. Positively, it highlights the immense power of setting clear intentions and taking small, actionable steps towards a goal. By making small, public commitments to your personal growth, telling a friend you're going to start exercising, writing down a goal, or joining a challenge group. You harness this principle to your advantage, increasing your likelihood of following through. It teaches you that influencing yourself is often the first step to influencing others. For ethical influence of others, understanding this principle means seeking small, genuine agreements that build trust and rapport over time, rather than demanding large concessions up front. It encourages patience and a stepwise approach to persuasion. However, the dark side is equally evident. This principle is frequently exploited for manipulative purposes. Sales tactics often rely on getting small yeses that gradually escalate into significant purchases. Cults or manipulative groups often begin with seemingly innocuous requests or beliefs, slowly drawing individuals into more extreme commitments that become increasingly difficult to back out of due to the overwhelming pressure for consistency. Recognizing these escalating commitments allows you to identify when you might be falling into a consistency trap. To ethically and effectively apply the principle of commitment and consistency, focus on leveraging it for positive personal and interpersonal growth. When trying to achieve a personal goal, break it down into tiny yet manageable commitments that you can easily follow through on. Celebrate these small victories to reinforce the behavior and build momentum. If possible, make these commitments public to harness the social pressure for consistency. When seeking to influence others, begin by identifying common ground or small agreements that you both can readily commit to. For example, in a negotiation, start by agreeing on a minor procedural point before tackling the main issues. For team projects, get each member to articulate their individual commitment to a small part of the overall goal. Always ensure that the initial commitment is genuinely voluntary and that the subsequent requests are in line with the spirit of the original agreement. When you find yourself being pushed towards an action or decision that feels inconsistent with your true desires, pause and ask yourself, is this consistent with my true values and my long-term goals? And am I agreeing to this simply to maintain consistency with a past, perhaps minor decision, or because it's genuinely the best choice? By understanding the powerful pull of consistency, you can consciously align your actions with your values, build positive habits, and guide others towards beneficial outcomes, making you a consistently influential and reliable force in your social landscape. Your core takeaway is this: small commitments build powerful momentum. So align your actions with your values to create a consistent, influential self. Have you ever noticed how much easier it is to say yes to someone you genuinely like, even if their request isn't particularly compelling on its own merits? Or perhaps you've observed how certain individuals effortlessly attract others, seemingly possessing an irresistible charm that opens doors and builds rapport wherever they go. This isn't just about superficial attractiveness. It's the profound psychological principle of liking at work. We are far more likely to be influenced by and comply with the requests of people we know and like. This principle underscores that genuine connection, rapport, and positive affinity are incredibly powerful lubricants for social interaction and influence, often bypassing logical arguments and going straight to the heart of human connection. The mechanism behind the liking principle is deeply rooted in our social nature and our innate desire for connection and positive relationships. From an evolutionary perspective, liking signals safety, trustworthiness, and potential for cooperation. We are naturally drawn to people who make us feel good, who seem similar to us, or who genuinely appreciate us. Psychologically, there are several key factors that contribute to someone being liked. Similarity is a powerful magnet. We tend to like people who are similar to us in terms of opinions, personality traits, background, lifestyle, or even superficial attributes like dress and interests. This similarity creates a sense of belonging and validates our own views. Compliments and praise are also incredibly effective. We naturally feel warmth towards those who genuinely admire or appreciate us, even if we suspect a hidden motive. The feeling of being valued is deeply satisfying. Cooperation and shared goals foster liking, as working together towards a common objective builds camaraderie and mutual respect. Finally, mere familiarity and repeated positive contact can lead to increased liking, as we tend to be more comfortable with what is known. Our brains associate positive interactions with positive emotions, making us more receptive to those individuals. You can observe the powerful influence of liking in virtually every social domain. In sales, professional salespeople often dedicate significant time to finding common ground with clients, whether it's a shared hobby, a similar background, or mutual friends, before even discussing the product. This isn't just small talk. It's a deliberate strategy to invoke the liking principle. Tupperware parties, for instance, famously leveraged the fact that people were buying from a friend or neighbor they liked, rather than an anonymous salesperson. In politics, candidates who appear personable, relatable, and genuinely connect with voters on an emotional level often outperform those who rely solely on policy arguments. In everyday life, a colleague who frequently offers a genuine smile, remembers details about your family, or offers help when you're busy, cultivates a strong sense of liking, making you more inclined to collaborate and support their initiatives. Even subtle cues, like mirroring body language or using similar verbal expressions, can unconsciously increase liking and rapport. It's about building bridges of affinity, making people feel understood and valued, which then opens the door to influence. The impact of understanding the liking principle is profoundly positive for building authentic relationships and fostering ethical influence. For self-development, it encourages you to cultivate genuine empathy, active listening skills, and a generous spirit of appreciation. By focusing on truly connecting with others, finding commonalities, and offering sincere compliments, you naturally become a more approachable, respected, and influential individual. This isn't about being a people pleaser, but about genuinely valuing and understanding others. For ethical influence of others, it highlights that building rapport and trust is often a prerequisite for effective persuasion. People are more open to your ideas, even when challenging, if they feel you genuinely like and respect them. However, it's crucial to acknowledge the darker side. The liking principle can be exploited for manipulative purposes. Con artists often master the art of appearing instantly likable, mirroring their victims' interests, showering them with compliments, and creating a false sense of friendship to gain trust and then exploit it. Recognizing when someone is excessively flattering, trying too hard to be similar, or using superficial charm without genuine substance allows you to be more discerning and protect yourself from calculated manipulation. To ethically and effectively apply the principle of liking, focus on cultivating genuine connections and fostering authentic goodwill. Start by looking for genuine similarities you share with others, hobbies, values, experiences, or even shared challenges. Subtly highlight these commonalities to build rapport. Practice giving sincere and specific compliments instead of a generic "good job." Try, "I was really impressed by how you handled X situation," Your calm approach was excellent. Actively seek opportunities for cooperation and teamwork, as shared struggles and successes naturally build bonds. Be a good listener, showing genuine interest in what others have to say, which makes them feel valued. Remember and use people's names, as this is a powerful sign of respect and attention. Make a conscious effort to be generally positive and approachable. People are naturally drawn to warmth and optimism when you encounter someone who seems to be overtly trying to make you like them through excessive flattery or contrived similarities. Pause and ask yourself, is this person's liking of me genuine? Or does it feel like a calculated attempt to gain my trust for an ulterior motive? And am I being swayed by charm rather than the substance of their message? By investing in genuine connection, showing authentic appreciation, and seeking common ground, you become a person who naturally draws others in, making you a truly magnetic and ethically influential presence in any social sphere. Your core takeaway is this: genuine liking builds bridges of trust and openness, making authentic connection the foundation of all true influence. Have you ever been unsure about a decision? Perhaps which restaurant to choose, what product to buy online, or even how to react in an ambiguous social situation, and found yourself looking to see what other people were doing? If you noticed a bustling restaurant, a product with thousands of positive reviews, or a group of people reacting a certain way, did you then feel more confident in following suit? This isn't sheep mentality. It's the powerful and pervasive psychological principle of social proof at work. We, as human beings, have an innate tendency to look to the actions and behaviors of others to determine what is correct, appropriate, or desirable for ourselves, especially when we are uncertain. The more people who are doing something, the more correct we perceive that action to be. The mechanism behind social proof is rooted deeply in our evolutionary history and our fundamental need for efficiency and safety. In uncertain situations, relying on the collective wisdom of the group can be a quick and often effective shortcut to making good decisions. If many people are doing something, there's a good chance it's a safe or beneficial course of action. Our brains are wired to infer correct behavior from the actions of others, particularly when those others are perceived as similar to us or are numerous. This creates a powerful herd mentality where conformity provides psychological comfort and a sense of validation. Furthermore, a strong desire to belong and avoid social faux pas compels us to align our behavior with the group. We assume that if a large number of people are doing something, they must possess knowledge or insight that we lack, and following them minimizes our risk of error or social rejection. You can observe the undeniable influence of social proof in countless real-world applications and everyday phenomena. Consider online shopping products with hundreds or thousands of five-star reviews are consistently chosen over identical products with fewer reviews, even if the latter are cheaper. The sheer volume of positive feedback acts as compelling social proof. In restaurants, a long queue outside a seemingly unremarkable eatery instantly makes it appear more appealing. The crowd itself signals popularity and quality. Television sitcoms famously use laugh tracks, even though we intellectually know they're artificial, because the sound of laughter primes us to perceive the show as funnier and encourages our own amusement, creating a form of manufactured social proof. In advertising, testimonials from satisfied customers or endorsements from celebrities who represent a large following are direct appeals to this principle. In social settings, if you're at a party and unsure how to act, You'll likely observe how others are behaving and adjust your own actions accordingly. If everyone is casual and relaxed, you'll relax. If everyone is formal, you'll mirror that formality. The wisdom of crowds dictates that if a lot of people endorse something, it must be good. The impact of understanding social proof is profoundly significant, offering powerful opportunities for ethical influence and crucial insights for self-protection. Positively, it highlights the importance of genuinely building a positive reputation and earning authentic endorsements. When you provide genuine value, people will naturally advocate for you, and their positive experiences become compelling social proof for others. It teaches you to showcase legitimate success and positive feedback to inspire confidence and trust. 4. Ethical influence. Understanding this principle means actively demonstrating the positive experiences of others. For example, when promoting a cause, sharing stories of how others have benefited or contributed can be far more persuasive than abstract arguments. However, the dark side is equally evident. Social proof is frequently manipulated. Fake reviews on products, artificially inflated follower counts on social media, or staged crowds at events are all examples of deceptive social proof designed to mislead. Recognizing these artificial signals allows you to be more discerning and avoid falling prey to the illusion of popularity. The infamous Jonestown tragedy, where hundreds of people committed suicide, is a chilling extreme example of how dangerous social proof can become in isolated, high-stress environments where individuals look to others for cues, even if those cues are horrifying. To ethically and effectively apply the principle of social proof, focus on showcasing authentic positive feedback and legitimate, widespread acceptance. If your product or service genuinely has satisfied customers, encourage them to share their testimonials. Highlight actual numbers when they are impressive, e.g. Over 5,000 students have successfully completed this course. In personal interactions, share success stories from your past collaborations or projects, demonstrating that your approach has worked for others. When presenting an idea, mention if similar ideas have been successfully adopted by respected peers or organizations. Make it easy for others to see the positive impact of your actions or ideas on a larger scale. When you encounter social proof, especially in commercial or persuasive contexts, engage your critical thinking. Always ask yourself, is this social proof genuine and verifiable? Or could it be manufactured? And are the people providing this social proof truly similar to me and operating under similar circumstances? Don't just follow the crowd blindly. Evaluate whether their actions truly align with your own values and goals. By understanding how the collective influences the individual, you can strategically leverage genuine social validation and also protect yourself from misleading trends, making you a more influential and critically aware participant in any social environment. Your core takeaway is this: authentic collective approval is a powerful testament to value. So, seek and showcase real-world validation to amplify your positive influence. Section 8.7. Unity, the power of shared identity. Have you ever noticed how quickly a sense of camaraderie forms among strangers who suddenly realize they support the same sports team, share a unique cultural background, or belong to the same professional association? This isn't just a pleasant coincidence. It's the profound psychological principle of unity at work. We are powerfully influenced by and deeply loyal to people with whom we perceive a shared identity or group membership. This principle goes beyond mere liking. It taps into our fundamental human need to belong and to identify with a collective us. fostering a powerful sense of allegiance, mutual support, and amplified influence within the group. The mechanism behind the unity principle is deeply rooted in our tribal past and our inherent desire for belonging and collective survival. From an evolutionary perspective, identifying with a group provided safety, resources, and protection. Our brains are hardwired to favor and trust those within our in-group and to be more receptive to their messages and requests. This creates a powerful sense of shared fate and mutual obligation. Psychologically, there are several key factors that contribute to this powerful sense of unity. Shared experiences or challenges are incredibly potent unifiers. Going through something difficult together, celebrating a common victory, or overcoming a shared obstacle forge strong bonds. Common goals or interests also create unity, as working towards a collective objective aligns individual efforts. Exclusive group membership, whether explicit or implicit, enhances the feeling of us versus them, strengthening internal cohesion. Even sharing seemingly trivial attributes, like a common name, birthday, or hometown, can trigger a micro sense of unity. This shared identity provides a psychological comfort zone, making us more open to influence from fellow group members. You can observe the powerful influence of unity in countless real-world scenarios, from everyday interactions to large-scale social movements. Think about sports fans. Strangers wearing the same team jersey at a game instantly feel a bond, share high fives, and celebrate together as if they've known each other for years. This shared identity makes them more receptive to messages from their team's management or other fans. In marketing, brands often cultivate a sense of community around their products, encouraging users to identify as part of an exclusive club, G. Apple users, Harley-Davidson owners, fostering loyalty that goes beyond the product itself. Political campaigns often use rhetoric that emphasizes we, the people, or our shared values, to create a strong sense of national or ideological unity, making citizens more inclined to support their agenda. In the workplace, fostering a sense of team unity through shared projects, common goals, and celebration of collective successes can dramatically improve collaboration and productivity. Even seemingly simple acts, like using inclusive language, we, us, our team, instead of isolating language, I, you, your department, can subtly invoke the unity principle. It's about transcending individual differences to highlight the collective whole. The impact of understanding the unity principle is profoundly significant, offering powerful opportunities for ethical influence and crucial insights for navigating group dynamics. Positively, it highlights the immense power of building genuine communities and fostering a sense of shared purpose. When you genuinely identify with others and work towards common goals, your influence becomes a natural extension of collective aspirations. It encourages you to build bridges between individuals, emphasizing what unites rather than what divides. For ethical influence, understanding this principle means actively seeking to establish shared identities and common ground. When presenting an idea or trying to persuade a group, frame your message in terms of our shared benefit, our common challenge, or our collective future. This makes your message resonate more deeply and feel less like an individual agenda. However, it's crucial to acknowledge the darker side. The unity principle can be exploited for dangerous and divisive purposes. Cults leverage extreme forms of unity, creating an us versus the world mentality that isolates members and makes them susceptible to manipulation. Political demagogues often use divisive rhetoric to create a strong in-group, simultaneously demonizing an out-group to solidify loyalty and control. Recognizing when unity is being used to exclude, demonize, or suppress critical thinking allows you to protect yourself and others from harmful groupthink. To ethically and effectively apply the principle of unity, focus on building and strengthening genuine bonds of shared identity and purpose. Actively seek out commonalities with others, not just superficial ones, but shared values, aspirations, or experiences. Use inclusive language that emphasizes we and us when appropriate, fostering a sense of collective responsibility and shared ownership. Whenever possible, create opportunities for shared experiences or collaborative projects that require individuals to work together towards a common goal, as these forge the strongest bonds. Celebrate collective achievements and acknowledge shared challenges, reinforcing the idea that we are in this together. For example, when leading a team, instead of saying, "I need you to complete this task," try, "Let's all work together to achieve our team's goal of." When you encounter appeals to unity, especially those that involve demonizing an other or demanding unquestioning loyalty, engage your critical thinking. Ask yourself, is this sense of unity genuinely inclusive and for a positive purpose? Or is it being used to manipulate, exclude, or stifle independent thought? By understanding how powerfully shared identity binds us, you can strategically leverage genuine unity for positive collective action and also discern when it's being twisted for harmful ends, making you a more influential and responsible member of any community. Your core takeaway is this shared identity creates powerful bonds. So build genuine unity by emphasizing common goals and collective belonging for profound positive influence. Section 9.8. Framing Shaping Perceptions. Have you ever noticed how the exact same information, when presented in slightly different ways, can evoke wildly different reactions or lead to completely opposite conclusions? For instance, a surgery being described as having a 90% success rate sounds incredibly appealing, but stating it has a 10% failure rate immediately makes it sound far riskier, even though the underlying statistics are identical. This isn't just semantics, it's the powerful and pervasive psychological principle of framing at work. Framing refers to the way information is presented, or the context and emphasis placed on certain aspects of a message, which profoundly influences how that information is perceived, interpreted, and ultimately acted upon. It's about subtly guiding the audience's mental lens to focus on what you want them to see. The mechanism behind framing leverages how our brains process information and make decisions, often relying on mental shortcuts or heuristics, rather than exhaustive logical analysis. Our cognitive capacity is limited, so we seek cues that help us quickly categorize and understand information. Framing provides these cues. Firstly, priming affects the specific words, metaphors, or imagery used in a frame can activate certain associations and emotions in the listener's mind, making them more receptive to particular interpretations. For example, describing a tax as an investment in our future primes positive associations, while calling it a burden primes negative ones. Secondly, attention direction framing directs attention to specific aspects of an issue while subtly downplaying or omitting others. By highlighting certain features, the frame shapes what information is most salient and therefore most impactful on the decision. Thirdly, loss aversion versus gain framing. As we discussed, humans are generally more motivated to avoid a loss than to achieve an equivalent gain. Framing an option in terms of potential losses, e.g., "You'll miss out if you don't act now," can be more powerful than framing it in terms of potential gains, e.g., "You'll benefit if you act now." The how of communication is often as important as the what. You can observe the profound influence of framing in countless real-world scenarios, from marketing to politics to personal conversations. In marketing, products are consistently framed to highlight benefits rather than features, or to emphasize savings rather than initial cost. A car might be advertised not just for its fuel efficiency, but for how it saves you money every week, gain frame, or prevents you from wasting gas, loss frame. In politics, the way a policy is framed can completely alter public perception. Environmental policies might be framed as protecting our planet for future generations, positive, long-term gain, or as costly regulations that stifle economic growth, negative, immediate loss. Even simply calling something reform versus cutbacks can evoke different responses. In everyday personal interactions, framing can profoundly impact how your ideas are received. When asking for help, framing your request as an opportunity to collaborate on an exciting project is often more effective than "I need your help with a difficult task." Parents frame chores as helping the family rather than something you have to do. This principle is about consciously choosing the narrative, the lens through which your message is viewed. The impact of understanding the framing principle is truly transformative for both ethical communication and critical thinking. Positively, it empowers you to present your ideas, arguments, and proposals in the most clear, compelling, and positively impactful way. By consciously selecting the right frame, you can ensure your message resonates with your audience, appeals to their values, and highlights the most relevant benefits. It encourages thoughtful communication, focusing on the audience's perspective and understanding how they will interpret your words. For ethical influence, it means using framing to clarify value, reduce ambiguity, and inspire positive action. However, the dark side is equally evident. Framing can be easily manipulated to mislead, obscure the truth, or create biased perceptions. Advertisers might use deceptive frames to make unhealthy products seem appealing. Politicians might use emotionally charged or misleading frames to demonize opponents or push unpopular policies. News outlets can frame stories in ways that promote a particular agenda, even if the underlying facts are selectively presented or exaggerated. Recognizing when you are being subjected to a particular frame allows you to step back, analyze the underlying information objectively, and consider alternative frames, thereby protecting yourself from manipulative persuasion. To ethically and effectively apply the principle of framing, focus on consciously choosing the most constructive and accurate lens for your message. Before communicating, ask yourself, what is the most positive and beneficial way to present this information? And what aspects do I want my audience to focus on? When presenting options, consider framing them in terms of benefits and its opportunities. Gain framing rather than only potential drawbacks. Use language that evokes desired emotions and associations. For example, instead of saying, "We need to address this problem," you might say, "Let's find solutions to this challenge that will unlock new opportunities." Use metaphors and analogies that support your intended message when you are on the receiving end of a message, particularly one that evokes a strong emotional response. pause and critically ask, how is this information being framed? And what alternative ways could this be presented? Actively try to reframe the information yourself to gain a more balanced perspective. By understanding that how you say something is often as important as what you say, you can shape perceptions for positive outcomes and safeguard yourself from manipulative narratives, making you a master of clear, impactful communication and a discerning consumer of information. Your core takeaway is this: the frame you choose shapes reality. So consciously select positive and accurate perspectives to powerfully guide understanding. Section 10.9. Anchoring the first impression effect. Have you ever walked into a negotiation for a car or a house, heard the seller's initial asking price, and then found that all subsequent offers and counteroffers seem to revolve around that first number, no matter how unreasonable it initially felt? Or perhaps you've been asked to estimate something, and the first number mentioned, even if arbitrary, profoundly influenced your own guess. This isn't a mere coincidence. It's the powerful and often unconscious psychological principle of anchoring at work. Anchoring refers to our pervasive tendency to rely heavily on the first piece of information offered the anchor when making decisions or judgments, especially under conditions of uncertainty. This initial piece of information, even if irrelevant or arbitrary, profoundly influences our subsequent perceptions and numerical estimates, shifting our entire mental framework. The mechanism behind anchoring is rooted in how our brains process and adjust information. When presented with an anchor, our minds don't simply ignore it, even if we consciously try to. Instead, the anchor acts as a gravitational pull, establishing a starting point for our mental calculations or evaluations. Subsequent judgments are then made by adjusting away from this initial anchor, but rarely sufficiently enough to escape its profound influence. This often happens unconsciously. One theory suggests that the anchor primes relevant information in our memory, making us more likely to recall data consistent with that initial number. Another explanation is that our brains are inherently lazy, and the anchor provides an easy, albeit flawed, starting point, reducing the cognitive effort required for a full, independent assessment. We drop anchor, and then stay relatively close to that spot, even if the seafloor is far away. You can observe the profound influence of anchoring in countless real-world scenarios, from pricing strategies to jury decisions. In retail, clothing stores often display a very expensive item next to a moderately priced one. The expensive item acts as an anchor, making the moderately priced item seem far more reasonable and affordable by comparison. Restaurants sometimes include a very high-priced dish on their menu, not necessarily expecting to sell many, but to make all other dishes seem more reasonably priced. In negotiations, the party who makes the first offer often gains a significant advantage, as that initial number serves as the anchor around which all subsequent discussions revolve. Even if the anchor is extreme, it sets the boundaries of the perceived reasonable range. In a legal context, research has shown that when judges or jurors are exposed to an arbitrary number, from a suggested penalty, their final judgments for damages or sentences are significantly influenced by that initial number, even if they know it was randomly generated. In everyday decision-making, if someone asks you to estimate the population of a distant city, and then immediately asks if it's more or less than a ridiculously high or low number, the anchor, your final estimate will be skewed towards that initial anchor. The impact of understanding the anchoring principle is truly transformative for both strategic influence and critical decision-making. Positively, It empowers you to strategically position your opening offer, proposal, or suggested value in a way that benefits you, setting a high or low, depending on your goal. Initial benchmark. By consciously deploying a well-reasoned anchor, you can guide the perception of value and shape the range of acceptable outcomes in negotiations or discussions. It teaches you the importance of careful preparation before presenting figures or making initial statements. For ethical influence, it means framing your value proposition clearly and confidently from the outset. However, the dark side is equally evident. Anchoring is frequently exploited for manipulative purposes. Unscrupulous salespeople might intentionally set an outrageously high initial price for a product, knowing they can then discount it to a price that still yields them a huge profit, but feels like a deal to the customer, solely because of the initial anchor. Advertisers might use inflated original prices that are never actually charged, simply to make the current sale price seem more attractive. Recognizing when an anchor is being thrown out, especially an extreme or seemingly arbitrary one, allows you to consciously disengage from its magnetic pull to ethically and effectively apply the principle of anchoring. Focus on carefully considering and strategically deploying your initial figures or statements. When making a proposal or entering a negotiation, aim to be the first to present a well-justified, aspirational figure, thereby setting the anchor in your favor. Ensure your anchor is defensible and realistic enough not to be immediately dismissed as outrageous, but ambitious enough to pull the negotiation in your desired direction. For example, if you are negotiating a salary, research typical ranges and then confidently state a figure at the higher end of your desired range, justifying it with your skills and experience. When you are on the receiving end of a number or judgment, particularly one that seems arbitrary or extreme, engage your critical thinking. Consciously pause and actively re-anchor yourself by focusing on objective data, your own predetermined value assessment, or independent research, rather than letting the initial number dictate your perception. Ask yourself, is this anchor legitimate, or is it merely designed to skew my perception? And what would my independent valuation be, free from this initial number? By understanding how powerfully initial information can shape our judgments, you can strategically set your own anchors and break free from the gravitational pull of others, making you a more influential negotiator and a more rational decision-maker. Your core takeaway is this: the first number sets the stage. So, strategically anchor discussions with well-reasoned values to guide perceptions and outcomes. Have you ever walked into a room where soft, classical music was playing and found yourself feeling calmer and more reflective, perhaps even more inclined to speak quietly, without consciously realizing the music was influencing your mood? Or have you seen a company logo and later, without a clear connection, found yourself thinking about certain positive attributes like speed or innovation that the logo implicitly suggested? This isn't coincidence or imagination. It's the subtle yet incredibly powerful psychological principle of priming at work. Priming refers to the phenomenon where exposure to one stimulus influences the response to a subsequent stimulus without conscious awareness. It's about activating specific concepts, ideas, or associations in the mind, which then subtly guide our thoughts, feelings, and behaviors, often below the radar of our conscious detection. The mechanism behind priming is deeply rooted in how our associative memory networks function in the brain. Our memories and concepts are not isolated. They are interconnected in vast webs. When we encounter a stimulus, the prime, it activates related concepts and ideas in our mental network. Once activated, these concepts become temporarily more accessible, making it easier and quicker for us to retrieve them or act upon them in subsequent situations. For example, if you are primed with words related to elderly, like Florida, bingo, wrinkle, you might unconsciously walk slower afterwards. If you are primed with words related to money, you might become more self-reliant and less likely to help others. This process is largely automatic and unconscious. We don't realize that our recent exposure to a word, image, or sound is subtly shaping our next thought or action. It's like setting a silent, invisible stage for the performance of our minds. You can observe the subtle yet profound influence of priming in countless real-world scenarios. From marketing and negotiations to personal interactions and even academic performance. In marketing, a restaurant playing French music might subtly encourage patrons to order more expensive French wines. Car advertisements often show vehicles speeding through open roads, priming viewers with concepts of freedom and excitement, even if the car itself is not particularly fast. In negotiations, research has shown that if participants are primed with numbers related to high values e.g., seeing a large number on a screen before a negotiation starts, they tend to make higher initial offers and achieve better outcomes. In interviews, candidates who use more positive and action-oriented language, judge, achieve, innovate, lead, subtly prime interviewers to perceive them as more dynamic and capable. Even the ambient environment can prime us. A clean, organized space might prime thoughts of efficiency and order, while a cluttered space might prime ideas of chaos or urgency. The impact is so subtle that people often deny being influenced by it. Yet experiments consistently show its pervasive effects. The impact of understanding the priming principle is truly transformative for both ethical communication and enhanced self-awareness. Positively, it empowers you to create environments and messages that subtly encourage desired positive outcomes. By consciously choosing words, images, and contexts that prime beneficial associations, you can help guide others towards constructive thoughts and behaviors. For ethical influence, it means being mindful of the subtle cues you send out and ensuring they align with the positive intentions you hold. It encourages you to think about the entire context of your communication, not just the overt message. However, the dark side is equally evident. Priming can be easily manipulated to subtly bias decisions or evoke undesirable behaviors without conscious detection. Advertisers might use subliminal messages or subtle imagery to associate their products with unrelated positive emotions, linking fast food to happiness or luxury items to status. Political campaigns can use subtle negative priming, using specific colors or music to evoke negative associations with opponents. Recognizing when you are being subjected to specific primes allows you to create mental distance and consciously evaluate your thoughts and reactions, rather than being unconsciously steered. To ethically and effectively apply the principle of priming, focus on consciously curating the environments and messages around you to activate beneficial associations. When you want to encourage a specific mindset in yourself or others, consider the subtle cues you can introduce. For example, before a creative brainstorming session, you might play uplifting music or put up inspiring images to prime innovation. When preparing for a difficult conversation, try to prime yourself with feelings of empathy and calm by focusing on positive past interactions with that person. Use positive, action-oriented language when discussing goals or challenges. Be mindful of the metaphors you use, as they can prime powerful associations, journey versus battle. When you are on the receiving end of information or in an environment that evokes a strong, unexplained feeling, pause and critically ask, what subtle cues might be influencing my thoughts or emotions right now? Are there any hidden messages or associations being activated? Consciously try to identify and neutralize any negative primes by focusing on objective facts. By understanding that your environment and the words around you are constantly shaping your subconscious, you can strategically prime for positive outcomes and safeguard yourself from unconscious manipulation, making you a master of subtle influence and a highly aware individual. Your core takeaway is this: subtle cues powerfully shape our minds. So consciously prime for positive associations to guide thoughts and actions. Have you ever found yourself unable to stop thinking about a task you started but couldn't finish? Perhaps a book you put down midway, or a puzzle you left incomplete. This persistent mental loop, where unfinished tasks linger in your mind far more vividly than completed ones, is known as the Zeigarnik effect. This powerful psychological phenomenon describes our tendency to remember uncompleted or interrupted tasks better than completed ones, creating a subconscious urge to revisit and finish what was started. It's the nagging feeling of unfinished business that keeps our minds engaged, often without our conscious command. The mechanism behind the Zeigarnik effect lies in our brain's inherent drive for cognitive closure and the way our working memory operates. When we begin a task, especially one with a clear goal, our cognitive system creates a state of tension or readiness, opening a psychic tension system to process the information related to that task. This tension persists and keeps the task active in our memory until it is completed. Once the task is finished, this tension is released, and the information is filed away, making it less accessible for immediate recall. Think of it like an open tab in your browser that demands attention until you close it. Our brains are essentially optimized to keep track of unfulfilled intentions, as these represent potential future actions or problems to solve, whereas completed tasks no longer require active monitoring. You can observe the profound influence of the Zeigarnik effect in countless real-world scenarios, from everyday habits to sophisticated marketing strategies. In television shows, cliffhangers at the end of episodes or seasons are classic examples of leveraging the Zeigarnik effect. By leaving viewers with unresolved questions or impending drama, the show creates a powerful psychological hook that ensures they'll tune in for the next installment. In video games, the design often involves multi-stage quests or challenges that are intentionally interrupted, compelling players to return and complete them. Even in online content, websites use progress bars for sign-up forms or articles, showing you how much is left, which subtly leverages your desire for completion to keep you engaged. In educational settings, teachers might assign an open-ended question at the end of a lesson to encourage students to continue thinking about the material outside of class. For our personal productivity, starting a task, even if you can only work on it for a few minutes, makes it significantly more likely that your brain will keep it active and prompt you to return to it. It's the mental equivalent of leaving a bookmark in a book you're eager to finish. The impact of understanding the Zeigarnik effect is truly transformative for both personal productivity and strategic influence. Positively, it empowers you to harness this innate psychological drive to your advantage. For self-development, if you're struggling with procrastination, simply starting a difficult task, even for 5 minutes, can activate the Zeigarnik effect, making it harder for your mind to let it go and increasing the likelihood you'll return to complete it. It encourages a just start mentality. For ethical influence, Understanding this principle means intentionally creating open loops or intriguing questions in your communication that leave your audience wanting more. This can be incredibly effective in presentations, storytelling, or content creation, ensuring your message sticks in their minds. However, the dark side is equally evident. The Zeigarnik effect can be exploited for manipulative purposes, leading to mental overload or addictive behaviors. Social media platforms, for instance, are masters at creating endless open loops with notifications, unfinished scrolling, and constantly updated feeds, making it incredibly hard for users to disengage as their brains crave closure on an ever-present stream of unfinished information. Marketers might intentionally interrupt a sales pitch with a teaser, forcing you to focus on the missing information. Recognizing when you're being caught in an open loop designed to keep you hooked allows you to consciously break the cycle and regain control of your attention to ethically and effectively apply the principle of the Zeigarnik effect. Focus on leveraging it to enhance engagement and drive positive completion. When you want to encourage someone to continue listening or interacting, open a loop by posing an intriguing question, hinting at a future revelation, or presenting a problem that will be solved later in your message. For instance, in a presentation, you might say, "We'll dive into the surprising solution to this challenge in just a moment, but first, let's explore the roots of the problem." In your personal productivity, if you're overwhelmed by a large project, break it down into smaller, defined tasks and simply start the first one. When you need to take a break, consciously leave a task slightly unfinished, making a note of where you left off. This makes it easier to pick up later when you find yourself obsessing over an unfinished task that is not truly important or within your control. Consciously close the loop by deciding to either complete it or deliberately let it go. Acknowledging that it's okay to leave some things unfinished if they don't serve your purpose. By understanding how our minds crave completion, you can strategically guide attention, enhance recall, and promote follow-through for yourself and others, becoming a master of engagement and productive momentum. Your core takeaway is this unfinished business creates persistent mental engagement. So strategically open loops to capture attention and drive desired completion. Have you ever found yourself clutching onto something you own, even if you rarely use it, simply because the thought of giving it up feels worse than the benefit of holding on to it? Or perhaps you've hesitated to invest in something new, not because of the potential risk, but because the idea of losing money feels disproportionately painful compared to the potential gain. This isn't irrationality. It's the powerful and deeply ingrained psychological principle of loss aversion at work. Loss aversion describes our profound tendency to feel the pain of a loss far more intensely than the pleasure of an equivalent gain. The psychological impact of losing $100, for instance, is typically twice as powerful as the joy of finding $100. This fundamental asymmetry in our emotional response profoundly influences our decisions, making us inherently risk-averse when it comes to potential losses. The mechanism behind loss aversion is rooted in our evolutionary past, where avoiding threats and preserving resources was crucial for survival. Our brains developed a powerful sensitivity to negative stimuli, as immediate dangers often required a stronger, more urgent response than opportunities for gain. Psychologically, it taps into our basic desire for security and stability. When faced with a decision, our cognitive processes are naturally biased towards protecting what we already have. This leads to what's known as the endowment effect, where we value something we own more highly simply because we possess it. making us reluctant to part with it. The fear of regret also plays a significant role. The potential regret of making a bad decision that results in a loss is often more daunting than the regret of missing out on a potential gain. Our brains are essentially wired with a built-in alarm system for potential depletion, ringing louder than the bells for potential addition. You can observe the pervasive influence of loss aversion in countless real-world scenarios, from marketing and finance to everyday decision-making and personal habits. In marketing, companies often frame their offers in terms of avoiding a loss. Instead of saying, "Sign up now and gain 20% savings," they might say, "Don't miss out on 20% savings. Offer ends soon." The latter activates the fear of losing a discount. Insurance companies, by their very nature, leverage loss aversion. They sell protection against potential losses, car accidents, house fires, appealing to our desire to avoid financial pain. In finance, investors are often reluctant to sell stocks that have gone down in value, hoping they will recover, even when selling would be the more rational choice to cut losses. This sunk cost fallacy is often fueled by loss aversion. We don't want to lose the money we've already invested. In public health campaigns, messages emphasizing the negative consequences of unhealthy behaviors, smoking kills, are often more effective than those highlighting the positive benefits of healthy ones. Exercise improves health, because the threat of loss is a stronger motivator. Even in personal relationships, the fear of losing a friendship or relationship can make us tolerate uncomfortable situations rather than risk the loss. The impact of understanding the loss aversion principle is truly transformative for both ethical persuasion and improved personal decision-making. Positively, it empowers you to frame calls to action in a way that resonates deeply with people's intrinsic motivations. By highlighting what individuals stand to lose by not taking a particular action, you'll miss the opportunity. You'll fall behind. You'll incur additional costs. You can create a more compelling case for immediate engagement. For ethical influence, it means emphasizing the potential negative consequences of inaction or resistance, not to instill fear, but to clarify the full scope of a situation and motivate beneficial choices. However, the dark side is equally evident. Loss aversion is frequently exploited for manipulative purposes. Salespeople might create false urgency around limited-time offers to trigger the fear of missing out. Scammers often use threats of financial loss or legal consequences to pressure victims into making impulsive decisions. Recognizing when someone is attempting to trigger your fear of loss, particularly in high-pressure situations, allows you to step back, calm your emotional response, and evaluate the situation rationally, thereby protecting yourself from manipulative tactics. To ethically and effectively apply the principle of loss aversion, focus on clearly articulating the potential negative outcomes of inaction or the benefits of maintaining the status quo. When advocating for a change, outline not just the gains of your proposed solution, but also the costs of sticking with the current approach. For example, instead of implementing this new system will make us more efficient, you might say, if we don't implement this new system, we risk losing efficiency and falling behind our competitors. When encouraging someone to adopt a new habit, emphasize what they stand to lose by not adopting it. You'll lose out on better health. You'll miss opportunities for growth. In your personal decision-making, when faced with a choice, consciously reframe the options to consider both potential gains and potential losses for each. Before making a decision driven by the fear of loss, pause and ask yourself, am I making this choice to avoid a hypothetical loss, or because it's truly the best course of action regardless of loss? And what would I do if this were framed only in terms of potential gains? By understanding that the sting of loss is a powerful motivator, you can strategically frame messages to encourage positive action and also inoculate yourself against manipulative appeals to your primal fear of depletion, making you a more resilient and influential decision-maker. Your core takeaway is this: the pain of losing motivates powerfully. So frame messages to highlight what's at stake to inspire decisive action. Have you ever walked into a room where everyone seemed incredibly stressed? And without a clear reason, you started to feel anxious too, or found yourself inexplicably uplifted after spending time with an exceptionally joyful friend, even if nothing specific happened. This isn't just empathy, it's the powerful and often unconscious psychological phenomenon of emotional contagion at work. Emotional contagion is the tendency to feel and express emotions similar to those of others, often automatically and without conscious awareness or deliberation. It's the rapid and subtle transfer of emotional states from one person to another, acting like an invisible current that can quickly shape the mood of an entire group. The mechanism behind emotional contagion is deeply rooted in our mirror neuron system and our inherent social wiring. Our brains contain specialized mirror neurons that fire both when we perform an action and when we observe someone else performing that same action, essentially allowing us to mirror and understand the intentions and emotions of others. This neurological mirroring extends to emotional states. When we observe someone expressing an emotion through facial expressions, vocal tone, body language, our own brains unconsciously mimic those same physiological and neural patterns, leading us to feel a version of that emotion ourselves. This process happens rapidly and involuntarily, bypassing conscious thought. It's a primal form of social synchrony, crucial for rapid communication and bonding within groups. Think of it like a ripple effect. One person's emotional state creates ripples that affect everyone in their vicinity. You can observe the profound influence of emotional contagion in countless real-world scenarios, from everyday interactions to large-scale public events. In customer service, a genuinely cheerful and calm representative can de-escalate an angry customer, as the customer unconsciously mirrors the representative's composure. Conversely, a frustrated service agent can quickly spread that frustration. In public speaking, charismatic leaders are often masters of emotional contagion. Their passion and conviction can electrify an audience, making them feel inspired or agitated simply by absorbing the speaker's emotional state. In team settings, a highly optimistic team member can uplift morale and infuse energy into a struggling project, while a chronically pessimistic one can drain it. Even in online environments, the emotional tone of a social media post or comment thread can quickly spread, leading to viral outrage or widespread positive sentiment. Have you ever noticed how the collective excitement at a concert or sports event is palpable? That's emotional contagion at its peak, with individual emotions amplifying each other into a shared, powerful experience. The impact of understanding the emotional contagion principle is truly transformative for both personal well-being and strategic influence. Positively, it highlights the immense power you possess to influence the emotional climate of any room you enter or any interaction you participate in. By consciously cultivating and projecting positive emotions like calm, enthusiasm, empathy, or confidence, you can significantly uplift others around you, fostering a more constructive and harmonious environment. For ethical influence, it means recognizing that your emotional state is a powerful, nonverbal message that can be even more persuasive than your words. It encourages you to manage your own emotions for the benefit of yourself and those you interact with. However, the dark side is equally evident. Emotional contagion can be exploited for manipulative purposes, often to spread fear, anger, or anxiety. Demagogues frequently leverage collective fear or resentment to rally support. Individuals with negative intentions might intentionally project distress or anger to make others feel uncomfortable and thus more compliant. Recognizing when someone is attempting to deliberately infect you with a specific emotion, particularly one that feels disproportionate or out of place, allows you to create mental distance and consciously choose your own emotional response, rather than being swept away by another's. To ethically and effectively apply the principle of emotional contagion, focus on consciously managing and projecting the emotions you want to spread. Before entering an important meeting or interaction, take a moment to regulate your own emotional state. If you want to inspire confidence, embody it yourself. Use authentic facial expressions, open body language, and a warm vocal tone to transmit positive feelings. Be mindful of the emotions you bring to a conversation. If you're feeling frustrated, acknowledge it, but try not to project it onto others unless it's a shared, constructive emotion. Actively seek to understand the emotional state of others and respond with empathy, rather than mirroring negative emotions. For example, if someone is stressed, a calm, reassuring demeanor from you can help to de-escalate their anxiety through contagion. When you find yourself unexpectedly picking up negative emotions from others, pause and ask yourself, is this emotion truly mine? Or am I absorbing it from someone else? Consciously try to break the chain of contagion by taking a deep breath, changing your posture, or mentally distancing yourself from the source of the negative emotion. By understanding that emotions are highly transmissible, you can become a beacon of positive influence, strategically shaping the emotional landscape around you and also protecting yourself from unwanted emotional currents, making you a master of emotional intelligence and social harmony. Your core takeaway is this: emotions are contagious. So, consciously project positive states to uplift others and strategically shape the social atmosphere. Have you ever had a minor wardrobe malfunction, said something slightly awkward in a conversation, or made a small mistake, and then felt convinced that everyone around you noticed and was judging you intensely, perhaps for hours or even days afterward? This pervasive feeling that we are constantly under scrutiny, that our actions and appearance are far more noticeable to others than they actually are, is known as the spotlight effect. It's the psychological tendency to overestimate the extent to which our actions and appearance are salient to others, leading us to believe we are the center of attention much more frequently than we actually are. The mechanism behind the spotlight effect is rooted in our egocentric nature and the inherent bias of our own perspective. As individuals, we are naturally the center of our own universes. Our thoughts, feelings, and experiences are immediately and profoundly available to us, while the internal worlds of others remain largely opaque. This creates a cognitive bias because we are so intimately aware of our own inner states and actions, especially our flaws or perceived missteps. We mistakenly assume that others are equally aware of them. Our brains process our own actions with immense detail, and we project that intense focus onto the perceptions of others, assuming they are paying as much attention to us as we are to ourselves. It's like wearing a self-focused projector that beams our every perceived flaw onto a giant screen for everyone else to see, when in reality, most people are too busy projecting their own self-focused concerns. You can observe the profound influence of the spotlight effect in countless real-world scenarios, often leading to unnecessary anxiety and self-consciousness. Consider the classic experimental evidence participants wearing an embarrassing t-shirt gig with a large, unflattering image were asked to estimate how many other people in a room would notice it. They consistently overestimated the number by a significant margin. In a similar vein, imagine giving a presentation and stumbling over a few words. You might replay that moment in your head for hours, convinced the audience noticed and remembered every detail, when in reality, most of them were focused on your overall message, or even their own internal thoughts. At social gatherings, someone might feel acutely self-conscious about a small stain on their shirt, believing everyone is staring, while others are probably engrossed in conversation or thinking about their own appearance. This effect can paralyze individuals, making them hesitant to take risks, express unique ideas, or stand out, all out of an exaggerated fear of negative judgment. The impact of understanding the spotlight effect is truly transformative for personal confidence and social authenticity. Positively, recognizing that people are far less focused on your minor flaws or occasional missteps than you imagine can be incredibly liberating. It significantly reduces social anxiety, allowing you to be more natural, spontaneous, and less constrained by the fear of judgment. It encourages you to embrace imperfections and take more risks, knowing that the stakes are often much lower than your self-conscious mind suggests. For self-development, it helps you shift your focus from external validation to internal confidence, fostering a more robust sense of self-worth. However, the downside is clear. The spotlight effect, while an internal bias, can lead to real missed opportunities if not recognized. Overestimating how much others care can make you overly cautious, hesitant to assert yourself, or unwilling to pursue goals that involve any perceived social risk. While it is not typically used for deliberate manipulation of you, it can be exploited by you, if you understand it, by subtly making others feel more noticed than they are, to encourage them to conform. For instance, more commonly, it simply serves as an internal barrier to personal growth and genuine connection. To ethically and effectively counter the spotlight effect, focus on actively shifting your perspective away from your own internal monologue. When you feel a wave of self-consciousness about a minor flaw or mistake, consciously remind yourself that others are primarily focused on their own lives and internal experiences, not scrutinizing your every move. Practice self-compassion by acknowledging that everyone makes mistakes and experiences awkward moments, and that these are rarely as significant to others as they are to you. Engage in perspective-taking exercises when you feel like everyone is watching you. Try to imagine what each person in the room is actually thinking about. Usually it's something entirely unrelated to you. Focus on being present in the moment and genuinely engaging with others, rather than being trapped in your own head when speaking or performing. Concentrate on delivering your message or performing your task well, rather than obsessing over potential minor errors. By consistently reminding yourself that the spotlight you perceive is largely internal, you can significantly reduce anxiety, increase your social ease, and embrace a more authentic and unburdened self making you more charismatic and genuinely engaging. Your core takeaway is this: the spotlight you feel is mostly in your head. So embrace authenticity and liberate yourself from unnecessary self-consciousness. Section 1615, Confirmation Bias, Believing What We See. Have you ever noticed how, once you form an opinion or belief about something, you seem to effortlessly find more and more evidence that supports it, while simultaneously dismissing or overlooking anything that contradicts it? Perhaps you believe a certain stock will perform well, and suddenly every piece of news, no matter how tenuous, seems to confirm your positive outlook, while any negative reports are quickly rationalized away. This isn't just selective attention. It's the powerful and pervasive psychological phenomenon of confirmation bias at work. Confirmation bias is our inherent tendency to seek out, interpret, and remember information in a way that confirms our pre-existing beliefs or hypotheses, while actively avoiding or discounting information that challenges them. It's how our minds construct a reality that aligns with what we already expect or want to believe. The mechanism behind confirmation bias is deeply rooted in our brain's efficiency mechanisms and our desire for cognitive consistency. Our brains prefer to maintain a stable, coherent worldview. Encountering information that contradicts deeply held beliefs creates cognitive dissonance, which is psychologically uncomfortable. To avoid this discomfort, our minds employ several strategies. Firstly, selective exposure. We actively seek out sources of information that are likely to confirm our beliefs, e.g., watching news channels that align with our political views. Secondly, selective attention when confronted with diverse information. We pay more attention to details that fit our existing framework and less to those that don't. Thirdly, biased interpretation. Ambiguous information is often interpreted in a way that supports our current beliefs. Finally, selective memory. We are more likely to remember evidence that confirms our beliefs and forget evidence that contradicts them. This entire process is largely unconscious, operating as an automatic filter that reinforces our established mental models, making it very difficult to change our minds even in the face of strong counter-evidence. You can observe the profound influence of confirmation bias in countless real-world scenarios, from personal relationships to scientific research and major political divides. In politics, individuals typically consume news from outlets that align with their political ideologies, reinforcing their existing views and making them increasingly polarized from those with opposing beliefs. Supporters of a particular candidate will highlight every positive action and excuse every misstep, while critics will do the exact opposite. In healthcare, patients may selectively seek out information that supports their preferred treatment plan, even if alternative, evidence-based options are available. In scientific research, while the scientific method aims to minimize bias, researchers can sometimes unconsciously interpret ambiguous results in a way that confirms their initial hypothesis. In personal relationships, if you have a negative first impression of someone, you might unconsciously look for and remember behaviors that confirm your initial judgment, even if there are many instances that contradict it. This bias can lead to stubborn adherence to flawed strategies or beliefs, making it difficult to learn from mistakes or adapt to new information. The impact of understanding the confirmation bias principle is truly transformative for both critical thinking and ethical influence. Positively, it highlights the importance of truly understanding your audience's existing beliefs if you wish to influence them. Rather than directly challenging deeply ingrained views, ethical influence often involves finding common ground or framing new information in a way that gently expands or connects with their existing framework, making it less threatening. It encourages intellectual humility and the active pursuit of diverse perspectives. For self-development, recognizing your own confirmation bias is the first step towards genuinely open-mindedness and learning. However, the dark side is equally evident. Confirmation bias is frequently exploited to manipulate public opinion and reinforce harmful stereotypes. Propaganda relies heavily on feeding people information that confirms their existing biases, creating echo chambers where alternative viewpoints are never heard. Marketers can target advertisements to individuals based on their known preferences, reinforcing existing desires rather than introducing new ideas. Recognizing when information is being presented in a way that only confirms your existing views, or when your own mind is resisting uncomfortable truths, allows you to consciously challenge your assumptions and seek out balanced perspectives. To ethically and effectively counter your own confirmation bias and foster more open communication, focus on actively seeking out disconfirming evidence. When you form an opinion, consciously look for arguments, data, or perspectives that challenge it. Engage with people who hold different views, not to argue, but to genuinely understand their reasoning. Practice the steelman technique, where you try to articulate the strongest possible version of an opposing argument, even if you disagree with it. When communicating with others, particularly on contentious issues, avoid presenting information in an overly confrontational, "you're wrong" manner. Instead, try to present facts and alternative perspectives in a neutral, non-judgmental way that allows the other person's mind to process them without immediately triggering their defensive confirmation bias. Ask open-ended questions that encourage them to reflect on their own reasoning. By consciously challenging your own internal filters and actively seeking intellectual diversity, you can make more rational decisions, engage in more productive discussions, and become a more genuinely influential and intellectually humble individual. Your core takeaway is this: our minds seek to confirm what they already believe. So actively challenge your own biases and gently introduce new perspectives to truly influence and learn. Have you ever met someone incredibly attractive or charming and automatically assumed they were also intelligent, kind, and capable, even before having any real evidence to support those assumptions? Or perhaps you've seen a product with beautiful packaging and subconsciously believed it must contain a high-quality item, regardless of its actual contents. This isn't just wishful thinking. It's the powerful and pervasive psychological phenomenon of the halo effect at work. The halo effect is a cognitive bias where our overall impression of a person, product, or brand, particularly a positive one in one specific area, influences our judgment of their unrelated qualities. It's as if a positive halo is cast, illuminating and enhancing all other attributes, even those not directly observed. The mechanism behind the halo effect lies in our brain's tendency to simplify complex information and create coherent, consistent narratives. When we encounter someone or something, our minds quickly form an initial impression based on salient features like attractiveness, perceived success, or even confidence. Once this initial positive impression is formed, our brains unconsciously generalize this positive feeling to other, unrelated traits. We fill in the gaps with positive assumptions to maintain cognitive consistency and reduce the effort of evaluating each trait independently. It's a mental shortcut that assumes if they're good at this, they must be good at that too. This bias is often subconscious, making it particularly powerful because we are unaware of its influence on our judgments. You can observe the profound influence of the halo effect in countless real-world scenarios, shaping our perceptions in everyday life, business, and even justice. In recruitment, physically attractive job candidates are often perceived as more intelligent and capable during interviews, even when their qualifications are identical to less attractive candidates. In marketing, brands leverage the halo effect by associating their products with popular celebrities or aspirational lifestyles. The positive feelings generated by the celebrity or lifestyle transfer to the product itself, enhancing its perceived quality and desirability. Consider how a tech company known for innovative smartphones might also be assumed to make excellent laptops, even if their laptop division is mediocre. In education, physically attractive students, or those with neat handwriting, are sometimes unconsciously given higher grades by teachers. Even in legal settings, attractive defendants sometimes receive lighter sentences due to the unconscious positive bias they evoke. This effect highlights that our initial impressions, even based on superficial cues, can create a powerful filter through which all subsequent information is interpreted. The impact of understanding the halo effect is truly transformative for both strategic influence and discerning judgment. Positively, it emphasizes the importance of making a strong, positive first impression and cultivating core strengths that can positively influence perceptions in other areas. By focusing on areas where you can genuinely excel and present yourself well, e.g., professionalism, clear communication, genuine enthusiasm, you can create a positive halo that benefits your overall interactions and career trajectory. 4. Ethical influence. It means ensuring your initial presentation, whether of yourself or your ideas, is polished and professional, allowing your true substance to be appreciated without unnecessary hurdles. However, the dark side is equally evident. The halo effect is frequently exploited for manipulative purposes. Con artists often rely on creating an immaculate initial appearance or projecting an image of immense success to gain trust and then exploit it. Products with flashy packaging but poor quality leverage this bias to deceive consumers. Recognizing when you are being swayed by a halo, when a positive trait in one area is making you overlook deficiencies in another, allows you to pause and evaluate each attribute independently, thereby protecting yourself from superficial judgments. To ethically and effectively apply the principle of the halo effect, focus on building and presenting genuine excellence in key, observable areas. Pay attention to your initial presentation, whether it's your professional attire, the clarity of your communication, or the organization of your work. Strive to genuinely excel in a few core competencies. This excellence will naturally cast a positive glow on your other attributes. For example, if you are an expert communicator, that skill will often make people assume you are also highly organized or detail-oriented. Always ensure that your substance backs up your initial positive impression. When you are evaluating others' people, products, or ideas, consciously counteract the halo effect by forcing yourself to assess each quality independently. Ask yourself, am I judging this person, not product, based solely on their attractiveness or brand initial success? Or am I evaluating their specific skills or features on track record? Actively look for evidence that contradicts your initial positive or negative impression to ensure a balanced perspective. By understanding how an initial impression can create an all-encompassing aura, you can strategically cultivate your strengths and become a more discerning observer of the world around you, making you both a more influential and more objective individual. Your core takeaway is this: a strong initial impression casts a powerful aura. So cultivate genuine excellence in key areas to positively influence overall perception. Have you ever made a significant purchase, like a new car, and then, despite some lingering doubts, found yourself strongly emphasizing all its positive features and downplaying its flaws to friends, or even to yourself? Or perhaps you've held two conflicting beliefs simultaneously. For example, believing in environmental protection while frequently engaging in actions that harm the environment, and felt an uncomfortable tension that you then sought to resolve this discomfort. And our powerful drive to alleviate it is the psychological phenomenon of cognitive dissonance. Cognitive dissonance is the mental discomfort experienced by a person who holds two or more contradictory beliefs, ideas, or values, or is confronted by new information that conflicts with existing beliefs, ideas, or values. It's the mind's inherent drive to seek internal consistency and harmony, often leading us to change our attitudes or perceptions to match our actions, rather than the other way around. The mechanism behind cognitive dissonance is a fundamental aspect of human psychology, our deep-seated need for psychological consistency. When we perceive an inconsistency between our thoughts, beliefs, or actions, it creates an unpleasant internal state. To reduce this discomfort, our brains employ various strategies. Firstly, we might change our beliefs to align with our actions. E.g., I smoked, so smoking can't be that bad. Secondly, we might change our actions to align with our beliefs. E.g., I believe in healthy eating, so I will stop eating junk food. Thirdly, we might add new cognitions or justifications to bridge the gap. I smoke, but I only smoke light cigarettes, so it's fine. Fourthly, we might downplay the importance of the dissonant elements. E.g., climate change isn't that big a deal. The key is that once we've committed to an action or belief, we become highly motivated to justify it to ourselves, often by altering our perceptions of reality. This is why people who go through a difficult or painful initiation to join a group often value that group more highly. The dissonance between the effort expended and a mediocre group is resolved by convincing themselves the group is amazing. You can observe the profound influence of cognitive dissonance in countless real-world scenarios, from everyday decision-making to major life choices and even cult behavior. In consumer behavior, once a customer buys an expensive item, they often engage in post-purchase rationalization, focusing on the product's benefits and ignoring its drawbacks to justify their expenditure and reduce buyer's remorse. This is why car dealerships often send follow-up surveys to new owners, as positive feedback helps reduce dissonance. In politics, voters who have passionately supported a candidate often find ways to rationalize their candidate's missteps or contradictions, rather than admitting they made a flawed choice. They might blame the media or focus on the candidate's perceived strengths. In public health, individuals who know smoking is harmful but continue to smoke experience dissonance. They might resolve it by believing it won't happen to me or everyone has to die of something. Even in personal relationships, if you've invested a lot of time and effort into a friendship or relationship that turns out to be toxic, you might experience dissonance and find it hard to leave, justifying the continued effort despite the negative outcomes. This powerful drive for consistency means that once a foot is in the door, a whole body often follows to maintain internal harmony. The impact of understanding the cognitive dissonance principle is truly transformative for both ethical persuasion and enhanced self-awareness. Positively, it highlights the immense power of getting people to take small voluntary steps towards a desired behavior or belief. Once they've taken a small action consistent with your goal, their minds will work to align their attitudes with that action, making larger subsequent actions more likely. For ethical influence, it means gently guiding individuals towards positive behaviors by first encouraging minor commitments that create a dissonance if not followed up. It fosters lasting change by tapping into internal motivation. However, the dark side is equally evident. Cognitive dissonance is frequently exploited for manipulative and even dangerous purposes. Cults rely heavily on creating high dissonance situations, where individuals are coerced into behaviors inconsistent with their past lives, giving up possessions, cutting ties with family, which then forces them to radically change their beliefs to justify their actions, binding them more tightly to the group. Abusive relationships often trap victims by subtly creating dissonance that leads to self-blame and rationalization of the abuser's behavior. Recognizing when you are being pressured into an action that feels inconsistent with your values, or when you are rationalizing a choice that feels wrong, allows you to consciously identify the dissonance and choose a healthier resolution. To ethically and effectively apply the principle of cognitive dissonance, focus on creating situations where individuals can voluntarily take small actions that align with a desired positive outcome. For example, if you want someone to adopt a healthier habit, don't demand a complete overhaul. Instead, encourage them to commit to a very small, easy-to-do action, just one healthy meal a week. Once they do this, the dissonance of not being a healthy eater will likely encourage further healthy choices. When trying to persuade someone with a different viewpoint, instead of directly challenging their core belief, focus on finding a small area of common ground or a minor action they might agree to that subtly nudges them in your desired direction, allowing their own mind to do the work of internal alignment. When you find yourself experiencing internal discomfort or rationalizing a questionable choice, pause and ask yourself, am I experiencing dissonance? What are the conflicting thoughts or actions? And am I changing my beliefs to justify my actions? Or should I change my actions to align with my true beliefs? By understanding this powerful internal balancing act, you can strategically guide positive behavioral change and safeguard your own integrity against subtle psychological pressures, making you a more influential and self-aware individual. Your core takeaway is this: our minds crave consistency. So facilitate small, voluntary actions to naturally align beliefs with positive outcomes. Have you ever found yourself in a situation where you did a favor for someone you weren't particularly fond of, only to discover afterward that your feelings towards them actually became more positive? This seemingly counterintuitive phenomenon, where doing someone a kindness can increase your liking for them, is known as the Ben Franklin effect. It posits that rather than doing favors for people we like, we often like people for whom we have done favors. It's a powerful testament to how our actions can subtly shape our attitudes and create an unexpected bond, turning indifference or even mild dislike into genuine affinity. The mechanism behind the Ben Franklin effect is deeply rooted in the principles of cognitive dissonance and self-perception theory. When we do a favor for someone, especially if it requires effort or cost, our minds face a potential inconsistency. Why would I exert effort for someone I don't like? To resolve this dissonance and maintain a consistent, positive self-image, our brain rationalizes our behavior. The easiest way to justify having done the favor is to conclude that we must. In fact, like the person for whom we perform the favor, If we didn't like them, our action would be inconsistent with our attitude, creating discomfort. So, to reduce that discomfort, we subtly shift our attitude to align with our action. It's a powerful form of self-persuasion. Our behavior dictates our belief. We perceive ourselves as helpful people, and helping someone means they must be worthy of our help, and therefore, likable. You can observe the profound influence of the Ben Franklin effect in countless real-world scenarios, particularly in building rapport and transforming relationships. Historically, Benjamin Franklin himself famously used this tactic. When he wanted to win over a political opponent, he didn't try to charm him. Instead, he humbly asked the opponent to lend him a rare book. The opponent, compelled by the request, lent the book. Franklin returned it with profuse thanks. As a result, the opponent, having done a favor for Franklin, began to like him, as his actions lending the book needed to be consistent with his attitude. In workplace dynamics, if you want to build rapport with a new colleague, asking for their genuine advice on a small, specific issue, showing you value their expertise, can be more effective than simply offering them help. This puts them in the position of being helpful, which then subconsciously increases their positive feelings towards you. In mentorship, a mentor often feels more invested in a mentee's success after dedicating time and effort to guide them. The act of helping deepens the bond. This effect is about leveraging the human desire to see oneself as a benevolent and helpful individual. The impact of understanding the Ben Franklin effect is truly transformative for building genuine connections and navigating social landscapes. Positively, it provides a powerful, counterintuitive strategy for building rapport and converting mild adversaries or neutral parties into allies. By humbly asking for small, genuine favors, you empower others to act in a way that then fosters their positive feelings towards you. It encourages you to view asking for help not as a weakness, but as a strategic tool for connection, demonstrating that you value their abilities and input. For ethical influence, it means creating opportunities for others to invest themselves, however minimally, in your success or cause, which then builds their commitment and liking for you. However, the dark side is important to acknowledge, while less overtly manipulative than some other principles. The effect can still be misused. Someone might repeatedly ask for small favors, subtly increasing your investment in them, without ever genuinely reciprocating, leading to an unbalanced relationship where you do all the giving. Recognizing when a stream of one-sided requests is subtly building an unwarranted sense of obligation allows you to evaluate the fairness of the relationship. To ethically and effectively apply the principle of the Ben Franklin effect, focus on identifying small, genuine favors you can ask that are easy for the other person to grant and that demonstrate you value their specific skills, knowledge, or resources. Don't ask for something trivial or easily done by anyone. Ask for something where their unique contribution is evident. For example, instead of asking, "Can you help me move this box?" you might ask a tech-savvy friend, "Could you quickly glance at this code? I'm stuck on a tricky bug, and I know you're an expert in this area." Always express sincere gratitude afterward, reinforcing their positive self-perception as a helpful individual. This is not about being a burden, but about creating opportunities for positive investment. When you find yourself frequently doing favors for someone who rarely reciprocates, and you notice your liking for them increasing despite their lack of return, pause and ask yourself, am I liking this person because of their inherent qualities, or because I'm justifying my own investment in them? And is this a mutually beneficial relationship? Or am I constantly in the giver role? By understanding this fascinating psychological twist, you can strategically cultivate positive relationships through mutual investment and ensure your acts of kindness are reciprocated in healthy ways, making you a more connected and discerning social architect. Your core takeaway is this: asking for favors, when done genuinely, can surprisingly build affinity by prompting others to justify their helpfulness with liking. Have you ever been told you must do something, or that a certain option is absolutely forbidden, and found yourself immediately wanting to do the opposite, even if you hadn't considered it before? Perhaps a parent forbade you from dating a particular person, only to make that person seem even more attractive. Or a company tried to block access to certain content, and that content instantly became more desirable and sought after. This isn't just stubbornness. It's the powerful and often frustrating psychological phenomenon of psychological reactance at work. Psychological reactance is the unpleasant motivational arousal that emerges when people experience a threat to or loss of their free behaviors. It's our automatic, defensive response to perceived attempts to control or restrict our freedom, often manifesting as a strong urge to reassert our independence by doing the opposite of what's intended. The mechanism behind psychological reactance is rooted in our fundamental human desire for autonomy and control over our own lives. From early childhood, we develop a deep-seated need to perceive ourselves as free agents, capable of making our own choices. When we sense that this freedom is being threatened or taken away by an external force, a person, a rule, a prohibition, it triggers an immediate and often intense emotional and cognitive backlash. This arousal is unpleasant, and to reduce it, we are motivated to restore our threatened freedom. This might involve directly defying the restriction, wanting the forbidden option more, or even simply arguing against the controlling message. It's like an internal alarm system that screams, "Don't tell me what to do," whenever our autonomy feels compromised. You can observe the profound influence of psychological reactance in countless real-world scenarios, often leading to unintended consequences, and the infamous backfire effect. In parenting, overly strict rules or absolute prohibitions, "You are never allowed to watch that show," often make the forbidden activity more alluring to adolescents, leading them to engage in it secretly or defiantly. In marketing, heavy-handed sales tactics that feel pushy or restrictive, "You have to buy this now," can alienate customers, making them less likely to purchase, even if the product is good. Conversely, a subtle hint that an item is exclusive or hard to get can trigger reactance in a positive way, making people desire it more because it suggests limited access to others. In public health campaigns, messages that are perceived as overly authoritarian or preachy, "You must stop smoking," can sometimes backfire, leading individuals to resist the advice simply to reassert their autonomy. In legal contexts, jury members may react negatively to lawyers who appear to be trying too hard to control their opinions, making them less likely to be persuaded. Even censorship can unintentionally amplify the very message it seeks to suppress, as the act of blocking access makes the content more desirable. The impact of understanding the psychological reactance principle is truly transformative for both ethical communication and strategic self-management. Positively, it highlights the immense importance of respecting individual autonomy and choice when attempting to influence others. By presenting options, emphasizing benefits rather than demands, and allowing people to feel they are making their own decision, you significantly increase the likelihood of compliance and genuine buy-in. It encourages a collaborative approach to influence rather than a coercive one. For ethical influence, it means framing suggestions as choices and recommendations as opportunities, rather than issuing mandates. However, the dark side is equally evident. Psychological reactance is a common pitfall for those who attempt to exert rigid control. Dictatorial leaders often face strong resistance because their tactics trigger widespread reactance. In personal relationships, constant nagging or controlling behavior can erode trust and lead to passive-aggressive defiance. Recognizing when you are experiencing reactance, that sudden urge to rebel against a seemingly arbitrary restriction, allows you to pause and assess whether your defiance is a rational response to a genuine threat to your freedom or simply an emotional knee-jerk reaction. To ethically and effectively navigate psychological reactance, focus on presenting choices and empowering autonomy. When you want to encourage a specific behavior, frame your request as an option rather than a command. Instead of saying, "You need to finish this report by Friday," try, "What's the best way for you to get this report done by Friday?" Or, "Would you prefer to tackle this report on Thursday or Friday?" Offer justifications and reasons, but allow the individual to feel they are making the final decision. When setting boundaries or rules, explain the why behind them clearly and respectfully, rather than simply issuing edicts. When you find yourself experiencing a strong sense of reactance, that urge to defy, pause and ask yourself, is my freedom truly being threatened, or am I reacting to a perceived threat? Is my immediate urge to do the opposite rational, or just an emotional response? Consciously reframe the situation as a choice, even if the options are limited, to regain a sense of control. By understanding our innate drive for freedom, you can avoid triggering counterproductive resistance in others and ensure your own reactions are thoughtful, not just reactive, making you a more influential and resilient communicator. Your core takeaway is this: people fiercely defend their freedom, so offer choices and respect autonomy to inspire cooperation rather than resistance. Have you ever found yourself completely engrossed in a movie, a novel, or even someone's personal anecdote, feeling deeply connected to the characters and their struggles, only to realize later that the story profoundly shifted your perspective on a particular issue, far more effectively than any dry statistics or logical argument ever could? This isn't just about entertainment, it's the profound and deeply human phenomenon of narrative persuasion at work. Narrative persuasion is the ability of a compelling story to change beliefs, attitudes, and behaviors by engaging emotions, fostering empathy, and bypassing logical defenses, making messages more memorable, relatable, and ultimately, influential. It's about inviting the audience into an experience, allowing them to feel and discover the truth for themselves. The mechanism behind narrative persuasion is multifaceted, leveraging our brain's natural affinity for storytelling and our emotional processing systems. Firstly, transportation. When we are engrossed in a story, we become transported into the narrative world. Our critical faculties are lowered, and we become more open to the story's messages, much like a child completely absorbed in a fairy tale. Secondly, empathy and identification stories allow us to step into the shoes of characters, experiencing their struggles and triumphs. This fosters empathy, making us feel what they feel, and if we identify with the characters, we become more receptive to their perspectives and solutions. Thirdly, reduced counter-arguing. Unlike logical arguments, which often trigger our critical thinking and defensive counter-arguments, stories tend to bypass these defenses. We are too busy following the plot and emotional arc to actively challenge the embedded messages. Finally, Memorability information presented within a narrative structure is significantly more memorable than abstract facts or figures, as it connects to our emotions and is organized in a way that aligns with how our brains naturally process experience. You can observe the profound influence of narrative persuasion in countless real-world scenarios, from advertising and political campaigns to education and personal development. In advertising, instead of listing product features, brands tell stories about how their product enhances a character's life, allowing consumers to imagine themselves in that positive scenario and emotionally connect with the brand. Think of commercials that show heartwarming family moments connected to a specific product, rather than just talking about its price. In politics, effective leaders don't just present policy papers. They tell compelling stories about real people affected by issues, or paint a vivid narrative of a desirable future. These stories resonate emotionally and are far more persuasive than bullet points. In education, engaging anecdotes or case studies are used to illustrate complex concepts, making them more understandable and memorable than dry textbook explanations. In public speaking, the most impactful speakers weave personal stories, relatable metaphors, and vivid scenarios into their presentations, creating an emotional connection that moves audiences far more than pure data. Even in personal relationships, sharing a personal story about a past experience can be far more effective in conveying a lesson or building understanding than simply giving advice. The impact of understanding the narrative persuasion principle is truly transformative for both ethical communication and personal insight. Positively, it empowers you to communicate your ideas, experiences, and values in a deeply engaging and memorable way that fosters genuine understanding and connection. By learning to craft compelling narratives, you can inspire action, build empathy, and create lasting impact that transcends mere information transfer. For ethical influence, it means using stories to illustrate truths, share experiences, and inspire positive change by appealing to shared humanity, rather than manipulating through fear or baseless claims. It encourages a focus on emotional resonance and authentic storytelling. However, the dark side is equally evident. Narrative persuasion can be exploited for manipulative or misleading purposes. Propaganda often relies on highly emotional, one-sided narratives to demonize opponents or create false realities. Scammers tell elaborate, convincing stories designed to evoke trust and bypass logical scrutiny. Recognizing when a story is designed solely to manipulate your emotions, to paint a biased picture, or to distract from uncomfortable facts allows you to maintain your critical distance and evaluate the underlying truth independently of the emotional pull. To ethically and effectively apply the principle of narrative persuasion, focus on crafting and sharing authentic, relatable, and purposeful stories. When you want to convey a complex idea, illustrate a point, or inspire action, think about how you can package it into a narrative. This could be a personal anecdote, a hypothetical scenario, or a relevant case study. Ensure your stories have a clear beginning, middle, and end, with characters, even if they're abstract, that your audience can relate to. Inject genuine emotion into your storytelling, allowing your audience to feel along with the narrative. When presenting a business idea, tell the story of a customer's problem and how your solution transformed their life. When advocating for a social cause, share a powerful story of someone impacted by the issue. When you are on the receiving end of a story, particularly one that evokes a strong emotional response, pause and critically ask, What is the underlying message of this story? And is this story a complete and fair representation of the truth? Or is it selectively highlighting certain aspects to persuade me? By understanding the profound power of stories to shape belief and behavior, you can become a masterful and ethical storyteller, capable of inspiring profound positive change, and also a more discerning audience member, able to appreciate the art of narrative while remaining grounded in truth. Your core takeaway is this: stories bypass defenses and connect deeply. So weave authentic narratives to inspire profound understanding and lasting influence. We've journeyed through the intricate landscapes of human psychology, unveiling 20 profound secrets of influence that are far more than mere tricks or tactics. From the subtle dance of reciprocity, where giving genuinely sparks a desire to return kindness, to the invisible strings of priming that gently guide our thoughts, and the compelling power of stories that reshape our realities. Each principle we've explored is a testament to the complex yet predictable patterns of human behavior. We've seen how our innate desire for consistency can become a powerful, self-fulfilling prophecy, how scarcity ignites desire, and how our deep need for belonging fosters unity. We've understood how authority commands respect, how liking opens doors, and how social proof guides our choices in uncertain times. We've delved into the mental discomfort of cognitive dissonance that drives us to rationalize, the painful sting of loss aversion that shapes our motivation, and the subtle transfer of emotions through contagion. We even uncovered the internal biases, like the spotlight effect, that often make us overly self-conscious, and confirmation bias that reinforces our existing views. Before exploring how the Ben Franklin effect can surprisingly build connection through asking for favors, and how psychological reactance highlights our fierce drive for freedom. Finally, we rediscovered the ancient, enduring power of narrative to persuade and connect on the deepest levels. These aren't abstract academic theories. They are the very threads that weave the fabric of our social interactions, the hidden gears that drive our decisions, and the silent forces that shape our perceptions of ourselves and the world. By understanding these mechanisms, you gain not just a superficial advantage in social situations, but a profound shift in mindset. You begin to see the world with new eyes, recognizing the subtle cues and powerful drivers that were once invisible. This deeper understanding fosters a remarkable sense of empathy, allowing you to better comprehend why people act the way they do, what truly motivates them, and how to connect with them on a more meaningful level. It moves you beyond simplistic judgments and into a nuanced appreciation of human complexity. This knowledge is your ethical compass, guiding you to use these principles not for manipulation or personal gain at others' expense, but for fostering genuine connection, inspiring positive change, and building stronger, more harmonious relationships. It empowers you to become a proactive force for good in your personal life, your professional endeavors, and your community. The true value of these 20 secrets lies in their transformative potential for personal growth. By recognizing how your own mind operates, how you are influenced by scarcity, consistency, or emotional contagion, you gain an unparalleled level of self-awareness. You become less susceptible to the unconscious biases and manipulative tactics that surround us daily. You learn to make more intentional choices, guided by your values rather than by automatic psychological triggers. This internal mastery then naturally radiates outward, making you a more confident, authentic, and genuinely influential individual. When you understand why people say yes, You can present your ideas in a way that aligns with their natural inclinations, without coercion. When you understand why people resist, you can navigate those objections with grace and respect for their autonomy. This journey into the human psyche is an investment in yourself, equipping you with the tools to build a life rich in meaningful connections and purposeful impact. Now, the power is in your hands. This knowledge is a gift, and like any gift, its value is determined by how you choose to use it. Will you apply these secrets consciously, ethically, and with genuine intent to build, connect, and inspire? Will you use them to uplift others, to resolve conflicts, to champion causes you believe in, and to foster environments of trust and cooperation? Will you leverage them to overcome your own internal barriers, build healthier habits, and achieve your personal aspirations? The profound shift in mindset we promised at the beginning of this journey is not just about understanding. It's about conscious application. It's about stepping into every interaction with a heightened awareness, a deeper empathy, and a strategic intent to create positive outcomes for all involved. You are now equipped with the profound insights to navigate the social world as a true social magnet, not through force, but through understanding, authenticity, and the magnetic pull of genuine human connection. The journey to influence begins with self-awareness, deepens with empathy, and culminates in meaningful impact. As we bring this profound exploration to a close, take a moment to simply breathe and absorb the insights shared. Allow these 20 secrets of influence to settle within you, not as a checklist to be mastered, but as a new lens through which to perceive the beautiful, intricate dance of human interaction. Imagine carrying this heightened awareness into your next conversation, your next meeting, or simply your next quiet moment of self-reflection. The transformation isn't about becoming someone new, but about unveiling the influential, compassionate, and self-aware individual you were always meant to be. This journey into the depths of human behavior is continuous, a lifelong path of learning and growth. May these insights empower you to connect more deeply, live more authentically, and shine as a true social magnet in every aspect of your life. The ripples of your newfound understanding will extend far beyond yourself, touching and positively impacting everyone you encounter. Go forth with confidence, empathy, and the profound wisdom of influence.